What's going on, everybody? Deal or No Deal here, and today we are playing some kill confirmed on Standoff, sniping with the SVU. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is sniping in this game. I have a particular tactic that I've been using lately that's been helping me out, and you kind of see it in this game, and I think people will like it. So it branches off into two different sections, and the first part of it is the more defensive game style. So on your class, you want to put some defensive equipment, whether that be a claymore, Bettys, shock charges, however you want to split it up. Maybe it's all defensive. In this game in particular, I went with a Betty and 2 shock charges, which is pretty popular nowadays. Most people use it to help them camp. And we're kind of camping, but it's sniping, so I don't view it so much as that. And you're not particularly staring from a corner. You're looking over the entire map, really. So what you want to do is you want to find a building that you have a nice overview of the map, or just a section in general. Standoff is really good because most buildings have a nice area to snipe from. Another area of note, which is pretty popular, is the ramp on Carrier. That gives you a really nice view of the map and is a great place to snipe from, but you probably already know that. So what you want to do is you want to get up in one of these buildings and you want to set one equipment at a time. I find people are setting multiple pieces of equipment at once, and that is not a good idea. It might help for someone who's just running right up there and has no idea, but some people run engineer or black hats or flak jacket or tactical mask. There's multiple options to get past your equipment. So you don't want to waste all of them on one person who could maybe just get rid of them all or not be affected. I find that you want to set one at a time, and you want to set them far away from you. So that way, if someone does end up destroying it or anything like that, you have time to realize this, turn around, and deal with the situation yourself. So you'll see me. I have a good area of the map. I'm picking people off constantly. I'm using my radar to my advantage. You want to go with score streaks that will help you see the radar. So UAV is a must. I also use counter UAV because I'm not using Ghost. I'm kind of staying in the same area so people can figure out where I am. So counter UAV helps me out there. And then I put Hunter Killer on just because it's a low kill streak. I don't like kill streaks that pull me away from the game. I've said this before, but I want to always stay in the game. I really like to run and gun here. So when it comes to something like the Stealth Chopper or the Warthog, those are score streaks that I'm really attracted to. However, I didn't expect myself to do well, so I put the Hunter Killer on. So I'm constantly using the UAV to help me see where people are, picking them off from afar, and it allows me to see if people are coming my way so I can defend myself. So you're going to end up using your equipment up over time because you only have maybe 3 or 4. And then once that's done, you want to move on to a different section of the map. Now, something I forgot to mention, but while you're here, you'll end up seeing this soon. I'm using the Executioner as my sidearm. You want to use a sidearm that's really good in close quarters encounters. Now, the Executioner is not the most consistent secondary, but I find in close quarters like this, it really doesn't do you much harm. If you're outside and there's a little bit more space where they have the ability to kind of move away from you, it's not the best. But if you're staying in buildings, then the Executioner can do well. Now, something I want to point out there that I made a mistake on is I kind of jumped out at him to take him on. That's not the best idea. He knew where I was, and I didn't really know where he was. I knew the general area because of the shock charge, but I didn't know his exact location. So for me to be aggressive like that is not the best tactic, usually. I find that you either want to wait for them to charge into the room, or if you want, you can probably like jump out a window or try to flank around them. Going from behind is usually the best tactic. So usually don't take them head on. I find that that's the least consistent way to eliminate enemies. So once you finish off your equipment and you have no way to defend yourself when you're up in this area, you want to start moving around. You want to do the more run and gun style, the aggressive play style, which is the second half of my tactic. And this is where I like using the SVU a lot, especially. The SVU can equip a suppressor and not have any sort of downsides. It's not a one-shot kill except for a headshot, and I don't think that changes with the suppressor. But either way, I personally do not go for the headshots. So when I put a suppressor on it, I'm allowed to shoot and not be seen on the radar, which is great for run and gun. So this really helps me out. I also equip the ballistic CPU, and that helps with all snipers. I find that I can scope in and not have to hold my breath to take shots. Now with the SVU especially, I don't have to be accurate because it's not a one-shot kill. But with the others, it helps out too because that one shot can really make a difference if you're using something like the ballista.
Kill confirmed.
I wouldn't recommend putting a suppressor on anything but the SVU though because, well, The one-shot kill will be nerfed especially. Maybe the XPR, but why not just use this gun? So once you start running and gunning, you want to play aggressive, but not ridiculously aggressive. You're using a sniper, and you're kind of using it in almost an assault rifle type fashion, because you're no longer staying back and sniping people off from a distance. You're kind of roaming around the map. So this is where your secondary really helps you out too. I find that I use my secondary a lot when I'm doing the run and gun sniper style, and maybe something like the Cap 40 will help you out more around them than the B23R. The Executioner is something I play around with. I think it's helpful for the first half, but then once I'm actually starting to run and gun, once people have that slightly longer range from where he is and where I am, the Executioner kind of fails in that regard. So I find that the Cap 40 can be a all-around good sidearm, but maybe you find yourself playing more defensively. Maybe you don't make it to the second half of this, in which case the Executioner can probably help you out there. Now, a tactic that is always useful, but especially useful here, and I actually don't do it in this gameplay, but you want to pick up someone else's primary. SMGs are particularly common in this game, and SMG is a wonderful sidearm. So if you can kind of kill someone and maybe swap your weapons, that's going to help you out a lot, because instead of having the Executioner, I could have maybe the PDW or the MSMC, which is going to help me out a lot more in pretty much every situation. Maybe even a shotgun. You can mess around with overkill, but I find that the points that needed to do all that is just too much for me. I actually, on this setup, I am using primary gunfighter, where I have the ballistic CPU, the suppressor, and my bad, I don't think I'm using it. I do when I use the ACOG, which is when the map isn't so big. If I'm doing a smaller map, then the ACOG I find is just a better sight to use. But on something like standoff or carrier, which are pretty common for snipers, I don't recommend an ACOG per se. But primary gunfighter usually isn't useful for anything but the SVU anyways, just because you won't need a suppressor on another weapon, so you won't need the third attachment. So maybe you can mess around with overkill if that's something you'd like, instead of having to use a sidearm. Maybe they're just not consistent for you, and that Remington 870 would do you much better. So really, once you start running and gunning, that's when I think your score streak will build up more. It all depends on how you play. I find myself doing a lot better on the run and gun section than I do on the defensive section, but I find that when you mix the two together, you can do kind of well. Because once you start to build up a small score streak with your defensive style of gameplay, then it can kind of get the ball rolling. It gives you intel on the map, know where people are, and then you can start moving around. You can probably go from place to place too if you find that it's getting too difficult, instead of staying in the same area. So maybe use one equipment and stay in one building, and then when that person is dealt with, when they come up, whether they get destroyed by your bouncing Betty or you end up turning around and getting them, then maybe move. And that's something that's more common, but you definitely want to space out those equipment usages, and that's really what's key here. If you use this for your gameplay, is to use one at a time. Don't lay it all out. Don't rely on this one spot at this one present time. Space it out, because I could very simply come in with engineer and a black hat and just ruin your day. Or if I have tac mask, then those shock charges won't do a thing to me. I can just come charging right up. So if you use one at a time, you're going to find yourself having a much longer life, really. And scavenger can work. I prefer fast hands for switching to secondaries. I've seen people use scavenger before to replenish the equipment, but I mean, really, how often you're going to use it? Maybe when they come charging up in that building that you're in. But then you're going to find yourself staying in buildings all game, and then it's really defensive. You really want to get to that run and gun section, because that's when a lot of the kills happen. This is good for getting the score streak started and getting the ball rolling, but then you really want to start running around. And this gameplay kind of works for LMGs too. LMGs are a little iffy in this game for me. I find that I can kind of run and gun with them. I've kind of messed around with the class and made it almost like an assault rifle sort of thing. But then if I use something like the LSAT, which for some reason I can't do quite as well with, then I find that something like this kind of game style will really help me out there. So if you're trying to work the LMGs, like I am currently, maybe mess around with that. Anyways, I'm all out of time. I've been rambling for quite a while. I hope these tips help. I always kind of like to update this with each game and give my thoughts on how to do well with particular game styles. because each game is different. So the gameplay is frozen here. I wasn't able to get the final score. I believe it is 47-9 from what my computer screen is telling me. So that is the game. Oh, there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, it's just been a while. I'm not 100% used to doing commentaries again. So anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time.